Started everybody because we like to show a video of our worship service to those people who are not able to be with us. We put it on our Facebook and we put it on our website. So if being recorded is not something you personally want, you can just turn off click so that your video is not on. So anyway, good morning. I'm Julia Hicks. I'm on staff at the church. I'm welcoming everybody on this gorgeous weekend. We will never take our weather for granted ever again, I hope. And I especially want to welcome those of you that haven't worshiped with us before, our newcomers or our visitors. And you found us, and that's exciting. And we hope that you're excited that you're here with us. And we'd like to know that you're here. And really kind of the only way we can know that this morning is if you will go down to the chat option on this Zoom and click on that and just say, I'm here for the first time today, or I'm a newcomer. I haven't been here very many times. Introduce yourself in any way that you want to. You can let us know. We'd really like to know if you happen to be out of town. We have a lot of people from out of town and across the world, really, at our worship services. And so if you're from out of town, just let us know. And I'm also wanting to let you know that there are other ways you can connect with us that are more private if you'd like. Our website, firstcongo.com, is going to have just pretty much all the information that you might need to learn about us, to connect with us. And right there on the front opening page of our website is the email addresses of all of our pastors. You are welcome to email them and let them know that you're a newcomer. Ask them the questions you want. They're delighted to get those emails. So be sure to do that. Also, what you can do on the website is reply to it and it will come to me. And that is to say, I'd like to be on the weekly newsletter, which is called the Congo Beat. That comes out on Thursdays. And that's going to give you pictures and announcements and schedules and all that sort of stuff. It's really, if you're really wanting to connect and get in the know, that's a really helpful way because it's more up to date. I'm also going to suggest that you get on the Congo Beat because that will also put you on some of our other important announcements and our weekly worship reminders right before worship on Sunday mornings. We're also on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and so don't have trouble getting a hold of us. And if you do, just write to one of us or call one of us and let us know I'm not being able to catch you. Another important thing for you to know as a newcomer and for all of us to remember is that we have 3 covenants that all have been reviewed, studied, and voted on by this congregation as commitments that we want to build the work and the ministry of our church and in our hearts as we go forward as Christians. And the first one is a just peace fellowship statement. That in all ways, at all times, we seek the justice road, the peaceful road towards resolution and towards planning. The next one is our open and affirming. We are in every way open and affirming, even in leadership and staffing and in every way to the LGBTQIA community. Those 2 are 30 years old. We've been living into those for a long, long time. We have one that's about a year old, which is our anti-racist commitment. We've been an anti-racist committed church for a lot of years, but when you make it written down, purposeful, vote on it, and really start acting on it with our education and in a much more concerted way, it has become even that much more real in the hearts of this congregation. All of those commitments are in your Congo Beat. They're on the website. Please read them. They're wonderful, and it'll tell you a lot about us. I want to let you know that next Sunday after worship at 2 o'clock, we're going to have a workshop for people who would like to participate in our worship services as lay readers. And a lot of you are wonderful at lay reading, but you might be a little bit nervous and feel a little bit uncertain that you would be comfortable doing it on Zoom or, in front of everybody. And if you've been at worship with us before, you have seen Phil Darius Wallace. a wonderful, wonderful actor and speaker, and he's a teacher as well. And he specializes in working with people and their own ability to speak in public, not just on a stage, but in other ways. And so Tony is putting together I think it's open to about a dozen people. If you're interested in that, be sure to check out the announcement that's in the Congo Beat. If you're having trouble getting on the Congo Beat, or you know you're interested, you can put that in chat too. Tony will be sure to see that and can get back to you. We're all worshiping from a distance today. Nobody's in the sanctuary because we've got that asbestos abatement going on. And so all of our worship leaders will be in their homes. And Lillian, I'm going to take it to you because you have a special announcement. Let me spot you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I have 3 announcements actually, and they are all about Easter, because if you can believe it, Easter is 4 weeks from today. The first is that I am working on a special project with Congo kids, with the kids in the community, where we are going to make a special welcome video. So look for an email from me today. If you do not receive an email from me, but have a kid in your life, in your world that you think would like to participate in that video, send me an email at lillian.lammers@firstcongo.com. And I will make sure that you get the instructions for how to participate in that. The second is that if the weather cooperates, in other words, unless it is pouring down rain, we are looking to hold a outdoor Easter egg hunt for our kids. And one of the favorite things about the house that Phil and I live in is that we have a really big front yard and a really big backyard. And so we're going to be able to offer 2 Easter egg hunts on Easter afternoon. The hunts will start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so you'll want to get here a little bit before 3. And we'll do a bunny hunt for kids under the age of 5 in the front yard. And bunny hunt essentially means that the eggs aren't really hard to find. They're just kind of out in the open for the little ones. And then for the older kids in the backyard, we're going to find some creative hiding places to put those eggs. So if your plans allow it on Easter Sunday, we really hope that you all will come out and participate. If you're old enough to wear a mask, we will ask that you do, and we will stay outdoors for that event. And the last announcement is we're going to need some Easter eggs to do this hunt. And we got a whole front yard and a whole backyard to fill. So we are asking folks if they will consider contributing some Easter eggs, the little plastic ones that you can get at Dollar General or Target or Kroger. And if you would put some candies in or stickers or little trinkets, things that kids can enjoy finding when they open up those eggs, that would be great. In the Congo Beat is my address, and you can just drop them off on my porch anytime. We don't have to schedule a time for me to be able to get those from you. If you have any questions, again, lillian.lammers@firstcongo.com. I did learn in Memphis over the last couple of years that chocolate, depending on if it is a sunny day, may not be a good thing to put in Easter eggs that are going to be sitting outside for a while. So I will throw along that little trinket of advice that I learned the hard way. But hope that you all will find a way to participate in this, and we're gonna try to have some fun on Easter. So thanks, everybody.
Oh man, no chocolate. I have one more important announcement, and that is that tonight is our Good Books, Good Friends meeting. And I have posted on the chat, and it should be the very first post on chat if you need to scroll up to it, that there is a different Zoom for entering that meeting tonight. If you're one of the folks who goes to that activity. And I happen to notice that Sue is on Worship Zoom this morning. So you can also, if you're having trouble with it, just post to Zoom and say, hey, Sue, I'm coming tonight. Can you send me the new Zoom link if you didn't already receive it? And with that, it's really good. We're all here together.
I want to share something very special with you about this particular bell. It was a gift, not just to me, but to all the guests at a girls' ink luncheon some years ago. And because I'm a collector of all things interesting, I kept this bell. And it was to remind girls that they should participate in money and wealth building. Today, in the month of Women's History Month, I'm ringing this bell with a prayer with each gong to hope and pray that girls all over the world become educated. Will you join me? Let us now join in the singing of our opening hymn, Here I Am to Worship.
Light of the world, you step down into darkness. Open my eyes, let me see. Beauty that's made his heart adore you. Hope of a life spent with you. Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. King of all days, oh so highly exalted, glorious in heaven above. Humbly you came to the earth you created, all for love's sake became poor. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me.
This morning's reading is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verses 11 through 32. Then Jesus said, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me.' So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now his elder son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he has got him back safe and sound.' Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, 'Listen, for all these years I have been working like a slave for you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you have never given me even a young goat, so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him.' Then the father said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found.'" The word of God.
It's a little bit me, and it's a little bit you. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't want to find that I'm a little bit wrong, and you're a little bit right. Good morning. Yes, even the monkeys. There's no depths we won't go to find a song. The prodigal son, one of Jesus's famous parables. In words we can understand, prodigal means foolish, and parable is just a good story with a lesson in it. There are 70 of these types of stories in the Bible, and if you could understand all of them, you would be a really smart person. So let's look at the one we have here today. It's got 3 parts to it. One, we have a family, and they're living on a large farm. We know they have slaves, which is not a good thing, but we'll talk about that another day. We have 3 characters. There's a father, there's an older son, and there's a younger son. Now, the younger son wants to get his share of the family farm and go off into the world. He goes off and he's not very wise, and he spends all his money foolishly, and he becomes penniless. Now, this is interesting because the younger son has to learn how to admit that he was wrong and go back to his father and say that he is sorry. That's a very good skill to acquire. But there's also an older brother who has stayed on the farm. He worked very hard. He's done all the things that a good son should do. And now the son that messed up is coming back, and he gets a party thrown for him. It's a little like the ant and the grasshopper story, if you've ever run across that before. But there's where the lesson comes in. The father uses forgiveness to find the freedom he needs to re-love the younger son. He starts a brand new beginning just by letting go of any anger or hurt feelings that he may have had. And that's my way of looking at the story. That's the good thing about a parable. Everybody can see things a little different in there. The oldest son seemed to be having no fun, though. He didn't go to the party. He missed all of the dancing and all of the farting and music that was happening at the party because he could not let go. To forgive is just to let go. The father let go and he could enjoy all the joy that was happening. So I want you to try some of this out. When you find yourself angry or mad about something that's not going your way, just let go. Forgive. You will be happy, healthier, and you'll live longer too. I guarantee you. So practice some of this till I see you again next week. Have a growing Lent season. And bye for now. You guys take care of yourselves. Thanks.
It's a great short story by Ernest Hemingway entitled The Capital of the World, and it begins in Madrid. Hemingway writes, Madrid is full of guys named Paco, so much so that there's a joke in Madrid about a father who came to town and placed an advertisement in the personal column of the newspaper which said, Paco, meet me at the Hotel Montana, noon Tuesday. All is forgiven. Paco. A squadron of police guards had to be called out to disperse the 800 young men who answered the advertisement. Now, it works as a story because as common as the name Paco apparently is in Madrid, so apparently also is the need for this kind of promised reconciliation. In the heart of every Paco, and in the heart of every one of us, you might say, is a child wanting deeper reconciliation, deeper understanding of a parent, a chance to say, I didn't mean it, or I didn't understand back then, or or maybe even a chance to hear from a parent, "I'm sorry it went that way. Let's put it behind us." There's something universally appealing, isn't there, about that invitation, "Come home, all is forgiven," which is the reason that this parable of the prodigal son survives as a gospel, as inspiration nearly 2,000 years after it was written. It names a need that is almost universal among us. It articulates a response that we all dream of, a father running out to meet his undeserving child. Forgiveness, a new beginning, reconciliation, it's all there. Rembrandt, Rubens, Tussaud, Bearden, many of the great visual artists, these painters through the centuries have painted this story because this hope lives so deeply in us. During this season of Lent, we're looking at some of the most basic understandings we hold as Christians. We began by thinking about the Christian understanding that the world is created by God. And last week, we looked at how Christians understand human nature, balancing that image of God that lives within us and all the potentials there, right up next to the reality that, yes, we all sin and fail to live up to this image. And today, we're going to look at what it means to talk about salvation. I remember a theology class I took back in seminary, and the professor began by saying, in one way or another, the question, "What must I do to be saved?" is the question that haunts all of us. It's the question in life from which every other question follows. He wasn't a man who threw out these kinds of things casually, and through the years, I've come to believe that he was very right. In one way or another, everything we do is our answer to that basic question. What makes a life worthwhile, meaningful, faithful? What are we obliged to do or to accomplish with the time that we've been given here on earth? You know, we Americans have embedded in our culture a very clear and goal-driven answer to this question. If you carry a Franklin Day Planner, you're part of a whole corporate empire based on the thinking of Benjamin Franklin. Franklin was big into setting goals and then planning through on how to actualize those goals. And he included morality as part of what it meant to be fully human. He believed that you could name moral standards and then systematically work towards fulfilling them. Morality, as he described it, was a kind of competency that we grew within ourselves. We could strengthen our morality through intentional work, almost like we might strengthen a physical muscle. In his autobiography, he writes about what he calls, quote, a bold and audacious project he undertook at one point in his life. The goal of his project was, as he says, arriving at moral perfection so that he might live without any moral fault at any time and conquer all that natural inclinations might lead him into. Sounds good. He was serious about it. He came up with this system to help him achieve this goal of increasing in virtue. And so what he did was he identified 13 basic virtues, and then he got a notebook, and across each page, he plotted a grid with the 13 virtues across the top of the page and the days of the week going down the left-hand side of the page. And his plan was to concentrate on one virtue per week. He would take time every night to mark with a line every time he failed to practice that particular virtue. So each 13 weeks, he spent a full week focusing on just one virtue. And by the end of the year, he would focus on that virtue for a focus of 4 times. He writes, I hope that by clearing the lines of spots, I would have clean pages and prove myself to be a man of virtue. Well, after spending several years of doing this, he had to admit that it wasn't going so well. I find myself surprised that I am so much fuller of faults than I had imagined. He admitted in his later years that he had never arrived at perfection and had fallen short of his goal. Franklin had tried and failed to become righteous by means of his own determination, practice, willpower, intelligence. Yeah, well, we can sympathize. It's harder than we think to be good. You know, the problem is that even if you could chart every virtue and systematically work to develop that virtue in your life, in the way that life tends to go, you don't always know that what you think you're doing, you're really doing. You know, one of the great humilities of raising children, parents say, is that while you try to instill a particular virtue or habit in your son or daughter, you might be creating a greater fault. We think we're helping somebody with our generous gift, but what we might be creating instead is dependency or resentment. Our refusal to judge someone may come off to them as if we're distant or uncaring or unwilling to invest in their lives. We assume that what would be helpful to us is helpful to our neighbor. And sometimes we're sadly mistaken. We go down one path hoping to end with a particular consequence, only to find out we get a totally different outcome than we wanted. And to add to it, our faults and our virtues are often the same trait. And that's what makes moral life especially difficult. People count on us to be the person in the group who addresses the conflict directly, but then we find that our bluntness has caused someone else a lot of pain. Or we may have the patience of Job, a trait that works very well in our personal relationships. But when it comes to our annual review at work, our supervisor says, you let things go way too long. You need to intervene much sooner to get better results. That imaginative, creative side of us that serves us so well in our painting drives our partner crazy. And it doesn't score very well with the IRS when we're trying to fill out our tax forms. See, our strengths in one settings become our weaknesses in another. And it's not so easy to chart out a path towards what you think is your perfection and find your way to that goal. In the 10th chapter of the book of Romans, Paul tells of another way. He, as a devoted Jew himself and someone who has great respect for Judaism, names the significance of the law, the 10 Commandments, as a standard for what human life should be. The commandments tell us who we are. We are people connected with the God of all creation, people linked with God and with each other in a very intimate way. We will know what life is lived to its fullness when we find ourselves enacting the commandments, when we find ourselves free of envy, able to make commitments, make promises honestly, without deception, when we're free of murderous rage or anger. We learn that we're more than the work we do, more than the stuff we own. See, all these things are values that are shared in the 10 Commandments, and Paul affirms the worth and the truth of these teachings. But what he insists on is that the path to this truth can't be found by making the law a to-do list, by plotting charts and grids and setting up even our own internal self-improvement courses. Ben Franklin could have saved himself some time by reading Paul first. Righteousness, Paul reminds us, using the language of the book of Deuteronomy, righteousness is not ascending into heaven because of our goodness or descending into the abyss because of our mistakes. We don't have to go hither and yon doing commandments calisthenics because it's not by our good efforts that things are put right with God. Salvation has less to do with what we do than with how we see and understand our place in the world. So, back to our question, what must we do to be saved? The parable of the prodigal son, or if you prefer, some people do, to call it the parable of the welcoming parent, gives us a pretty clear answer. We have to put aside our pain, our shame, our egos, our self-righteousness, our what have yous, enough to allow God to bring us home. When we look at what it means to be redeemed, to be saved, when we look at what a fulfilled life is all about, it can't be about perfection. It can't be about not making mistakes, about rising to such a level of understanding or virtue that we have our 13 columns and our 52 weeks filled with marks or tributes or references that speak to our goodness. even though we want constantly to put redemption in our own hands based on what we do, what Christianity teaches us is that it's found in grace, which exists for us all. Elaine Pagels is a scholar who spent a lot of time looking at the Adam and Eve story and how we conceive of sin. And she writes, people would often rather feel guilty than feel helpless. People would often rather feel guilty than feel helpless. And she's got a good point. We hate the fact that there is so much in life that we can't control. Sometimes self-contempt or blame is actually a way that we try to keep control of things. If we can blame ourselves, strangely enough, we can pretend that we could have done something different to create a different outcome, rather than just face the fact that there's a lot in life that we can't foresee or make a difference about. Sometimes life just falls where it will. I remember officiating at a funeral for a woman who had just died a couple years after she'd moved from Nebraska to California. At the funeral, one of her sons confessed, "I feel so guilty. I wish I'd never pushed her to move to California. It was too much of a change. It killed her." And then just a few minutes later, her daughter took me aside and said, "I feel so guilty. I should have encouraged Mom to move to California years ago. She loved it there. And the way it turns out, she just had a couple years in a place she considered paradise." Well, which is it? Who's guilty? Is it the son for encouraging her to move, or the daughter for encouraging her to stay? Or could it be that the woman just died, that it was her time? And it had nothing to do with either staying or moving to California or what her son or daughter had done or not done. See, we'd rather feel guilty sometimes because in its own strange way, it gives us a sense that we could have controlled outcomes that were never really within our control. And it also gives us false, but grounding to judge others as we set up our own systems of earnings and rewards. To believe, to live as if God's love is conditional, to believe, to live as if God's love doesn't understand that we make mistakes, to believe or to live as if God's compassion, God's patience, God's presence will shift because of our behavior is strangely enough to deny that God is God. It is to put other judges, other lords in charge of our universe. The company that fired us, or the kid who said the mean thing, or the parents who didn't understand, or the partner who walked away, or the addiction that was out of control, or our own bad choices along the way. To say that Jesus is Lord is to say that the company, the kid, the parents, our own bad choices is not Lord. Paul, such a serious scholar of the law, understood the Ten Commandments, the law, as a description, the guide to an actualized life, and not ever a substitute for this forgiving, redeeming presence of God, the God who runs to meet the prodigal child ready to return home. Have you ever watched kids play? You know, one minute they can be at each other's throats. "I hate you. I never want to see you again. Go away." And they stomp off with their toy for a minute or two. And then they sit there and they get bored or distracted. And sure enough, in 5 minutes, they're back playing together as if nothing happened. Why is that? Well, I think it's because they have the wisdom to choose happiness over righteousness. You know, righteousness so often means having to hold memory, grudge, insist on a kind of reckoning, at least the way the adults see it. And happiness often means just letting people off the hook, letting God be God, letting people be their imperfect, flawed selves and enjoying what there is to enjoy just the same. You may have heard the advice, never attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity, because you'll keep hanging on longer than you should. It's not an especially gracious phrase, but there's a lot of truth to it. It's very possible that happiness is a more authentic spiritual goal than righteousness, because happiness allows us to let go, to let God figure it out, enables us imperfect, flawed people to connect as we can, not insisting on a consistent virtue that is beyond any one of us, and a righteousness that sometimes chokes out the beauty of love with an insistence on dry duty. You know, the prodigal son was able to turn his life around simply by admitting that he couldn't do it on his own, that he needed help. See, life isn't a trap set for us by God, even in the hardships that come our way. God doesn't send tests to see if we can measure up. The road to redemption isn't full of landmines so that if we miss one step, if we make a mistake, if we aren't vigilant or insightful, life will explode and our righteousness will be lost. Theologian Frederick Buechner put it in general terms. He said, I think it's possible to say that in spite of all its extraordinary variety, that the Bible and consequently Christian faith is held together by having a single plot. And it's one that can be simply stated. God creates the world gets lost. God seeks to restore the world to the glory for which God created it. And that's the hitch for some of us. We don't want to name that salvation, getting saved, has far more to do with letting God be God, letting God bring us home, so to speak, letting God do the work of restoration, than putting our own personal efforts and righteousness in the center of it all. That's what got the older brother of the prodigal son hung up, wasn't it? He just couldn't let go of his need to earn what was given, to not be indebted, entitled in some ways to what blessings life had given him. He wanted earnings more than blessings. He wanted to own his righteousness, his good place in the world. And according to the parable, so central in the shaping of Christian understanding, that's just not the way God operates. Salvation is not so much a road of righteous action as a journey of opening towards blessing. Think for a very minute about how blessed this moment is. It's alight with color, sound, sunlight, connection, friendship, mystery, promise. See, faith begins by knowing that at the heart of the universe is a God who runs out to greet us, who throws a beautiful robe upon us and creates a feast each day in our honor. We find salvation by taking that simple revelation and living from it, that at the center of the world is goodness, and we're invited to live there. We don't have to be tiny, self-obsessed little beings eking out our own living in a huge, dangerous kingdom. We can let God be God and choose humility, choose grace, choose forgiveness. And in that way, we find immortality. We choose resurrection then in the millions of ways that it might come to us as gift, as the power of life, calling us home, no matter how lost we might be. Amen. We now worship God as we present our offerings. Do you like it?
In light and in darkness, in times of joy and despair, we have one another. We have the many gifts and the many responsibilities that come from being together, from being in community. Please join with me as we proclaim and affirm who we are as a faith community. We will be together. We will stand as brothers and sisters given life by one God. We will be together. We will watch out for one another. We will listen to what needs to be said in a spirit of compassion. We will respect the power of silence. We will wait for the slowest. We will sooner or later catch up with the fastest. We will dry the tears of those who are weeping and know that they will dry ours when the time comes. We will let ourselves begin to feel at least a little of the pain of those who have been considered our enemies. We will entrust our stories to each other. We will not be skeptical that peace can come. We will not forget the joy of life. We will not forget to be grateful. We will do our best to stir in each other hope, courage, and faith. Amen.
As you all know, all of the pastoral staff are in our own homes today as work is being done on the south part of the building. Preparing the communion table in my own dining room this morning was a strange and beautiful experience, and it transported me back in time to the earliest days of the Christian movement when followers met in secret in their own private homes. It reminds me that the power of this ritual is not contained in any particular time and space, and it serves to connect us across that time and space. And these days, even through a screen. So join me now as we sit together at many tables, which we experience as one table this morning. One of the most sacred and enduring ways that we affirm our life together and celebrate the power of God's love is by joining in the ritual of communion. I invite you now to gather your bread along with your wine or juice or water, or simply join us in a spirit of holy attention. One of the beautiful aspects of our denomination, the United Church of Christ, is that we have no one set group of words that are to be used during the celebration of communion. With 5 ordained clergy at this church, you will hear 5 different interpretations of this celebratory feast. For me, I find power and deep connection in speaking the words of Jesus in the Gospel of Luke. So that is what you will hear today. Let's join together in remembering and reenacting this story. On the night he was betrayed, Jesus gathered together with his disciples and said, "I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer." He took the loaf of bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and he gave it to them, saying, "Eat, this is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." After supper, he took the cup and did the same thing, saying, "This cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood. Do this in memory of me." And all who could said, "Amen." We are now going to join in watching the video of our new covenant prayer. And hopefully this is the 3rd week that you're hearing it. Hopefully you're getting familiar enough with it that you will be able to start joining in singing it. That is our end goal, that when we are back together in person, this will be something that we sing together as a community.
you join me in prayer this morning? Good morning, God, God of saints and sinners. We praise you for the illusion of being God of our choosing. We acknowledge you have all the sacred and supernatural power, and we covet droppings. We give thanks for every blessing showered upon us, even when our resources appear dry as a drought. Our bittersweet lives remind us of our individual limitations. Today, the view of our community expands, and we say thank you. Thank you for moving the COVID-19 $1.9 trillion recovery bill along the legislative conveyor belt towards signing and implementation. Also known as the stimulus package, we ask that it be received with gratitude, spent with discernment and wisdom. Convert our minimal to overflow. We received the resignation notice of our conference minister for the Missouri Mid-South Conference, Reverend Jenny Brown Daniel. We trust that you and Jenny can handle her life, but her woo is now our boo-hoo. We pray blessings on her impact and her new path. We ask that you anchor and sustain the Rhodes College community in their abrupt leadership change. And many Memphians lost a personal friend, and some of us, really all of us, lost a social justice and civil rights champion with the passing of Vernon Jordan. May his rest be peaceful and his work well done in your sight, Creator. The Hyde Family Foundation, a longtime supporter of our Revolutions bike shop, is mourning the passing of one of its members, Jean Varnell. She and her late husband, Henry, generously supported local theaters, Memphis Theological Seminary, and other nonprofits. Bless their legacy for good. Barbara Pfeiffer, Joe's sister, pushing through breast cancer, welcomed our prayers on her behalf. Hear our prayers, O Lord, hear our prayers. Bless Joy Winkler's young, near daughter-in-law, Juanita Costa, challenged by another presence of breast cancer 3 years after recovery. Monday, Leland Ball was discharged from rehab. His fragile health needs our prayers and your healing, God. We are grateful for your restoration in Leland's body, though his heart is broken by the end of a 25-year friendship. He and his partner, Barbara Keys, Frank Perry's sister, mourn their loss together with our prayers. Larry Piercy, Betty Hunter's younger brother, passed quickly and quietly, leaving a big hole in the family circle and one in Betty's heart. Well, letting no trial drown her, Betty rose gleefully to celebrate her 90th birthday all week with calls, cards, and socially distanced visitors. We thank you for her agency and her aging model in our midst. We pray mightily for our children, juggling so many traumas to their development as children, adolescents, and emerging adults. Help us continue to grow as pastors and people to create a true safe haven of emotional protection and spiritual growth for all who connect with this oasis, seeking renewal. Let us offer radical hospitality at First Congo. No matter the social, or the political classification of those who come our way. And now in our personal silence, let us hear you, O great Jehovah. And now, God, believing you have heard all spoken and unspoken messages within our hearts, we end our prayer singing the Lord's Prayer together. Amen. Amen. Let us go forth, asking God to teach us how to love our adult children, siblings, those that we call family, as the Father loved the lost son.
The blessing of God Almighty, Jesus our brother, and the Holy Spirit our strength be with us and abide with us always. Amen. Let's join in singing God of mercy, God of grace.
God of mercy, God of grace, show the brightness of your face. Shine upon us, Savior, shine.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
There's a gallery.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, berries.
Everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So it's just us.
Oh,
Adorable.
Look at your
I love your
puppy.
pajamas.
Wow.
Thank you.
Why don't they make cool clothes like that for adults?
really? He's here.
Very into watching
That's a onesie.
Cute.
Great.
Look how easy. Oh, that's
That
so
head of hair.
That's a beautiful scene.
Nicole.
Hi, Nicole. We missed
Thank you
you.
very much.
Welcome back.
Good to have you back.
Bienvenida.
Yes. Yes. There's some chasing.
You're muted.
Kiddo.
You're muted, Nicole.
Hey.
Hey,
Hi.
Little hair girl behind you.
Hello.
Hi, Virginia.
Bye, Katie.
No.
oh, knocked out.
Hi, Virginia.
Hey, Virginia.
Hello.
Oh, great.
I love all those curls.
I know. Oh, razzle up like this. Hello.
That's
I'm gonna make that head.
How you doing with those two babies now?
We're good, you know. The littler one is getting so big. He's like
I
a new
see
baby
that.
every day. It's wild.
Actually, you don't have two babies. You have a big girl.
I know. They always my baby though, right?
Good morning, you guys.
Tell your parents hello.
I will. Hello.
I do want to. I
All right,
just
can you sit down?
Hi, Sue.
Hey,
Hey,
Sue.
Sue.
Good to see you this morning.
Nice.
See you, Sue.
You're not in your bed. Usually you're in your
Oh my gosh, I'm feeling some shame.
Don't be embarrassed. The only reason you can do that is because you don't have as many chins as I do.
Oh, my God.
I was going to say she's not knitting, Betsy, but it appears that you are, so. No, I am. Don't
I'm
tell
in the Barca
Sonia.
Lounger.
Don't tell Sonia.
Sonia, I'm sorry I'm knitting. I know you told me I couldn't knit in church.
You're not the only one.
Uh-oh.
When did you ever do anything I said?
Good to see you. You got a husband next to you? Is Dad there this morning?
Oh,
He's there in spirit, right?
He was here for the service, but he's gone to take a nap now.
Smart, Dad.
Oh, great.
He's been working hard and he's tired on the weekends.
Why don't we travel all the way to Portugal?
Yay!
Hey.
Hello.
amazing.
Hey, everybody.
How y'all doing?
Hey,
Great. We're actually going to be in Memphis in 3 weeks.
She tells everything.
Just to visit.
I was gonna just show up. I can't believe
Love it. Love it.
Look at you.
Portugal looks good on you though.
Yeah.
yes, it does.
That's why the camera is only shoulder and high.
Yeah, that's right.
Wine and cheese.
Cheryl, all the ministers, she's trying to drink during your service, by the way. I'm gonna tell her.
Oh,
It's not communion.
that was communion.
Oh, yeah, before and after.
Really joyful where you are. Like 4 o'clock or something in Port.
It's 5:40.
Well,
Yeah.
Carol said God set the feast for you, so by all means.
Let's go.
For Mitchell.
Thank you.
Oh, yay.
Hey, Lori.
Good to see
Bye.
you all.
Hey, everybody.
How are you, Janet?
How
Hi,
is everyone?
Lori.
How's your son, Janet?
He is fantastic, Sonia. He is he's such a busybody that he's now working at, he's finishing his junior year of high school. He's a budding mathematician.
Wow.
He's racing mountain bikes.
Wow.
Oh, that's no
working-
surprise either.
He's working part-time as a bike mechanic at 2 different bike shops in the Salt Lake City
Wow.
area.
Wow.
All far from the tree, eh?
Right.
I'm so proud that I got him interested in biking.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Math and bikes, it's a great combination.
Good to see you. Let's see. Hi.
Well, tell him one of his first Congo godmothers asked about it.
I certainly will. I have shown him pictures of his being in the no rehearse Christmas pageant when he was 4. So you may not remember it, but I have proof of it.
I see a baby girl.
Hey,
Baby butt.
ballerina.
Mary.
Hi, Rosemary.
I tried to feed her some communion bread, which has rosemary in it, and she doesn't like it.
Only one Rosemary counts.
Right.
Rosemary.
Hi, Daddy Phil.
You're looking very good.
Hey.
See you. Oh, she's so cute.
Here's
I'm
my
going back and capturing that as a picture.
Yeah. Hey, I love this.
here are my new friends, Whit and Karen down here. These are our new friends, Whit and Karen. They have a nice picture. They won't come on the camera.
Where are they?
Welcome.
Make yourselves
Mr. Marshall.
known.
Yeah.
Hey y'all.
We're
Can you-
here.
Glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
We'll try to be presentable next week then.
Have you seen some of us? Presentable doesn't matter.
Pandemic we're on.
Phil looks like he's about to
My
break.
hair's a mess.
Oh,
I know
yeah,
it's
mine
going to
too.
be different when we have to put on clothes to go to church
Hey.
again.
Sometimes co-hosts can change the spotlight.
Well played, Lillian.
Or come back in. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you later. Bye-bye.
I also,
See ya.
Hey.
Hey.
Baby.
Good to see
Hey y'all, how are you?
you.
Excellent.
How you feeling?
Good to say hello to
It's
everybody.
great.
Yeah.
Yes.
You look well.
Thank you.
Taking off. Love you guys.
Bye, Sue.
Bye.
See ya.
Have a good week, everybody.
Hey, a big thank you, Alicia. You guys, you work the hardest.
Hey.
Have a wonderful week, everyone.
You too.
You too.
Hey, great to see the choir. The Hammond
Yes.
choir singing. Thank you.
That was super fun. That was super fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Has everybody said hello?
Hello. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ron, good to see you, Ron.
Yeah, you too. Bye.